Ladies and gentlemen, we have some news on Vlad Jr. Here's Jeff Passan with the tweet. Star slugger Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and the Toronto Blue Jays did not reach an agreement on a contract extension before his Monday night deadline. Where did Jeff Passan get this news? Well, he got it from Vlad Jr. himself talking to the media at spring training. He said they had their numbers, I had my numbers. Now, I'm going to be honest here. I'm not really surprised about this. And also, just want to throw in there, I thought the countdown clock that Vlad had on his Instagram story was kind of hilarious. I could see how frightening it was for Toronto Blue Jays fans out there. But I thought the countdown clock was rather interesting. I just got to say that. But again, not really surprised about this. We got a story from Bob Nightingale about a little over a month ago saying Guerrero and the Blue Jays are at least $100 million apart, with Guerrero seeking at least $450 million. And I'm going to be honest, I do think that is what he's going to end up getting, at least something in that realm. On baseballtradevalues.com, on their future extension value tool, they have for a 10-year deal, $388 million. Now, I don't know how many years he's going to be looking for. Let's say 12. If it is 12, then you're definitely looking at over a $450 million contract if he gets $38 million per year. Now, on Spotrac, they're projecting a 12-year, $427 million contract. But when you factor in the market value, the bidding, yeah, I think he is going to end up getting $450 million. The Blue Jays, they clearly do not see that in Vlad. Personally, I do think he should get that money. Well, why should he get that money? Well, he's one of the best bats in all of Major League Baseball, coming off a great year. 159 games this past year, hit 323, a 396 on base, a 544 on the slugging, a 165 WRC plus, 30 homers, and he's only just about to turn 26 years old. He's going to be 26 when he hits free agency next offseason. I definitely think Vlad, going into his prime, absolutely should get a contract like this. I think he's going to be one of the best bats in Major League Baseball for a while. You're going to be getting a lot of good production. And just to touch on his value here, he is projected to be around a 5-win player yet again here in 2025. And you got to remember, one win above replacement could be worth anywhere from $8 to even $10 million, depending on how teams see it. So let's say one win above replacement is worth a minimum $8 million. Well, 8 times 5, that's $40 million. He's only just about to turn 26 years old. You're probably going to be getting a lot of good production here, at least for the next 6, maybe even 7 years as he goes into his early 30s. So yeah, Vlad, he is definitely going to be worth anywhere around $450 million. What happens now? Well, it's going to be interesting moving forward. I think the Blue Jays, how they do this year is going to be a big factor. But if they're at the trade deadline and, they're a few games out of a wild card spot, behind that third wild card, I think there's a possibility where they look at themselves in the mirror and they say, hey, you know what? We're a few games out right now. Vlad, he's going to be hitting free agency. Maybe we should look into a trade here, get back some value while we still can. I could definitely see something like that happening at the trade deadline. Could they trade him before the season starts? I think that is something to pay attention to. I would say it's more likely you see something at the trade deadline because I do think the Blue Jays want to compete this year. I mean, look at the moves they made this past offseason, bringing in Anthony Santander, Jeff Hoffman, Max Scherzer. They made a lot of moves this off, trading for Andres Jimenez as well. So they want to compete this year, and Vlad obviously makes them better. Now, again, if they're a few games out of a wild card spot at the deadline, then yeah, I could definitely see something happening with Vlad. Also, Bo Bichette too. I think Bo Bichette's going to have a better year. It's going to be very interesting for the Blue Jays this year. But I would not count out a trade before the season starts, because if they get something of value back, let's say a major league ready player that has years of control, I could see them maybe looking into that. But I think it's more likely he gets moved at the deadline if he does get moved. We'll just have to wait and see. But it's looking very likely he's going to be hitting free agency. So what teams out there could be in the market for Vlad? Well, I'm going to start off with my Red Sox. Excuse Draftnik Robbie here, but I do think Vlad is a perfect fit for the Red Sox. Now, I know they're trying to figure out, Rafi Devers right now at third base. I think that's going to work itself out over time. You would have to figure out what's going to happen with Tristan Casas. He's been on the trade block for what feels like 92 years at this point. But Vlad Jr., with his right-handed bat at Fenway Park makes a ton of sense. He has a very close relationship with both Pedro Martinez and David Ortiz, right? A lot of great Dominican history with the Red Sox over the years. He would be the closest thing to Manny Ramirez for the Red Sox. His bat would be amazing at Fenway Park, with the Green Monster. He has the oppo power as well to go over the bullpens there in right field. Vlad would be amazing at Fenway Park. And actually, going back to this article, Bob Nightingale did say this along with what he said about the $100 million apart. He said, if Guerrero doesn't return to the Blue Jays, he would love to be with the Red Sox, friends say, which may be why the Red Sox are hesitant in their pursuit of Bregman. Well, this, in hindsight, this part doesn't look all that great. But remember, they did the opt-outs in there. So, who knows what ends up happening with that contract? We'll see. Bregman, $40 million AAV. That's going to be hard to turn down over the next couple of years. We'll see how that plays out. But I could definitely see the Red Sox making a strong run. And Bob actually posted about it again on Twitter today, saying it's no secret that Vladimir Guerrero has told friends that if he hits free agency, he'd love to play for the Boston Red Sox. And also, Marino Papen touched on this as well. He has been very hit or miss in the past, but he does have ties in the Latin community. He goes on to say here, there's always been a mutual interest between Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and the Red Sox for a long time. I say this with knowledge of the facts and reliable sources. Obviously, in free agency, there will be bids, but it is a fact that he would prefer the Red Sox, and they would be his first option. Another team to pay attention to are the Mets, and we actually got a report from Andy Martino a little while ago saying the Mets have spoken with the Blue Jays this winter about Guerrero, said it was more checking in, but still, could you imagine this lineup with Lindor, Soto, Alonso, Vlad, some of these other bats like Vientos and Nimmo? My goodness, what a lineup that would be. And after the monster offseason the Mets just had, I could definitely see them continuing to be aggressive at the deadline. And if Vlad's available, my goodness, he would be a huge addition for the Mets if they could get that done. And I could also see that as a bit of a recruitment process at the same time. Bring him in, have him be around this culture for a couple of months, show him all the good things that are going on here with the Mets. And who knows, maybe they could sign him in the offseason when he becomes a free agent. Now, when it comes to some other teams, I'm not so sure about the Yankees, right? They got Paul Goldschmidt on a one-year deal, so they are going to be looking at first base for next offseason. But when it comes to Vlad and the Yankees, there's not really a great history there. There was that little thing from back a couple of years ago. Vlad Jr. adamant that he will not join the Yankees, saying that he would never change that. That goes back to his dad, Vladimir Guerrero. There was, not some great history there. So I don't know if Vlad will ever go to the Yankees. Money does talk at the end of the day, but I feel like that's probably not going to happen. Now, I got a couple other teams that maybe could be under the radar. I think the San Francisco Giants could be a big player. His bat would play perfectly in San Francisco, right? More of a pitcher-friendly ballpark, but that power plays at that park. I think he would be perfect for this team. I still think they could use a middle-of-the-order bat here. You did bring in Willy Adames, right? You got Matt Chapman there as well. I feel like they could use one more bat. Lamont Wade Jr., this is a guy that gets on base very well, but you could definitely use an upgrade with the power. I think the Giants would be a very nice fit. Now, maybe the Chicago Cubs, Michael Busch, he has some versatility. Depending on how things shake out with the Cubs over the next year or so, I could see them maybe being a player here. For right-handed hitters at Wrigley, it's not the best, but this is Vlad we're talking about. Some of the best right-handed power in all of Major League Baseball. He would definitely clear Wrigley Field. I think he'd be a huge addition for the Chicago Cubs. There's a team out there like the Mariners. Will they spend the money? I don't know. But if there was ever a time they could spend the money, this would be an amazing addition for them. Again, more of a pitcher-friendly park, but the right-handed power clears in Seattle. They could definitely use someone like Vlad in this lineup for years to come to go along with Julio Rodriguez. But will they spend the money? I don't know. Maybe even, a dark horse team like the Nationals here. Up-and-coming team, got some young talent there. Sure, you did bring in Nathaniel Lowe this offseason, but, you can move him to DH, whatever it may be. I think a bat like Vlad would be great here for the Nationals, especially a team with all this young talent on the rise. I could see him liking the future of the Nationals. Maybe maybe even the Texas Rangers. I know they just traded for Jake Berger and they signed Jock Peterson, but Peterson has a player option for 2026. So if he exercises that, you could move Berger to the DH spot and maybe make a run at Vlad. Out of all these teams, right now, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be biased here, but I think the Red Sox have a great chance here. Sure, you'd have to figure out what you do with Tristan Casas. What happens with Raffy? Is he DH? First base? Whatever it may be. But Vlad, I just think with the ballpark there, all the connections he has with David Ortiz and Pedro, the good Dominican history there, I think it would be a really nice fit. And the Red Sox, it seems like they have turned the page on the last 5 years or so, with not really spending the money. They just spent big on Bregman. Maybe they can keep this going here. I think Vlad would be a nice investment. And when it comes to the Red Sox and spending in free agency, they don't like to give out long-term deals to guys over 30 years old. Bregman, they gave the 3-year deal. But if there was a player that they could give a long-term deal to, I could definitely see Vlad being that guy. And again, I'll touch on the Mets one more time. I mean, obviously, what the Mets have been doing here over the last couple of years, I could definitely see them being a strong contender. And I could see Vlad, looking at this team and thinking, man, that's a team I want to be a part of, right? Juan Soto, for crying out loud. Definitely got to consider the Mets here. I do think in the end, right now, if I were to give a way too early prediction, I think it will come down to the Red Sox and the Mets. Who knows? Maybe the Blue Jays can come back to the table and say, all right, you know what? Come on, 450, let's get this done. But probably not. He doesn't want to keep the negotiations going. So in the end, we'll just have to wait and see what ends up happening here. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. What do you think about Vlad and the Blue Jays ending the negotiations? Where do you think Vlad ends up next offseason? Do you think he gets traded before the season starts? Do you think he gets traded at the deadline? Let me know all your thoughts down below in the comments. But everyone, that's all I got for right now. If you can on the way out, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and I'll talk to you next time.